probably the most formalized or the thing that we should probably do is have you guys tell me, the Zoom people, whatever, whoever's watching, who you
Just
are.
us three. I can bring in Chris whenever you want. I mean, he's just downstairs, like.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Just to say who you are, like state your name, where you live, what you do with your world, who's in your world, that kind of thing. Just for starters, and then we can just fly from there, I think. So
Cool.
be official in that regard.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I can go. Are you ready for me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'm Jamie O'Hare, and I'm not from Appalachia originally, but I've been here for almost 14 years. And I moved to Wheeling in 2010. And I've been married for 25 years now to my husband, who I met in Indiana. He got a PhD at Notre Dame and came to Wheeling to teach religion. And we have 4 children. And our connection to neurodivergence is that Dan and I would both definitely qualify as some kind of neurodivergent. I think potentially both of us could have been, if the current DSM-5 were in effect when we were children, we may have been identified as autistic. It's possible, given that 2 of our children are. But Dan can work in 13 languages, and he's just extremely hyper-focused, very diligent, and just very, to an extent that I can't possibly keep up. And that's okay. But he has a PhD, and then he lost the job at Wheeling Jesuit, and then went right into the LSAT, got into WVU for free, and was in the top 10 in his class. So that's neurodivergence. That's not that's not normal, but thank God.
That's not normal.
We just no. And he was commuting between Wheeling and Morgantown during that time. So from 2019 through 2022, except for like the worst of COVID, he was commuting between Wheeling and Morgantown. Wow. And still came out in the top 10 in his class. So that's neurodivergent. That's one aspect of it, is like, we've mentioned a little bit in our talk beforehand about superpowers. Well, Dan's is language, and so that also works well with law. He's really great with logic and with words, and he's really doing fantastic in a new career. And it was pretty devastating to lose a religion tenured job in 2019 when there's not going to be another opportunity like that. Getting any job after the housing mortgage meltdown in 2008, getting any kind of academic job was kind of a miracle. And the funny thing is, as we left Notre Dame, we went to the legal aid clinic and got our will done before we were getting ready to leave Notre Dame. He goes, "I should have gone to law school." And I was like, "We just bought a house in West Virginia. What are you talking about?" So he kind of knew. And so we gave the academic side a trial, and I supported that, and we went with it. And I was glad we did it. But I was really thankful that he had said from the beginning, if this doesn't work, I'll go to law school. He's a 4th generation attorney. So it made sense. So that would definitely be where Dan's neurodivergent superpower goes. Mine is more in logistics. And so just trying to figure out where everything needs to go. And I would say in my faith background as a child growing up in a really conservative sect of Anabaptist, shame was a big thing, and ADHD was not a thing. So,
Yeah.
so
That didn't exist till the 70s, Jamie. What are you talking about?
I was born in 77. So I was flagged for ADHD in public school, and my parents were at a church where that wasn't really a thing, and so I just was put in Christian school. And that was how we handled it. And so I was always kind of high achieving. And then as I got older, this is what happens with females who have ADHD, is we go. And oftentimes we're very smart, we're very creative, and then we crash and burn. And we are just burnout. So I had probably 2 nervous breakdowns in college.
Oh, wow.
One toward the beginning and one toward the end. I was married because in the sect you got married pretty young as well, because it's purity culture and all of that. So I have known for a long time it was a possibility, but I did not get a diagnosis until 44, which would have been about the time that I met you, Jeannie.
Yeah, that's wild.
I'm almost 47 now, and
You guys have like known each other 3 years.
yeah, I was coming off of yeah.
I've only seen each of you one
We
time.
met it officially at Mike. Yeah.
Yeah.
We only met in person at Mikey Ivory's funeral, and I had worked with Mikey and knew him in the University Chapel and things like that. And he and my husband were both theologians, and actually were born 4 days apart. So,
Wow.
my husband's middle name is Michael. So I've had a losing that friend has been a big deal. And so just definitely want to carry on some of the things that were important to Mikey. It's been important to me. I have 2 autistic children. Ian is at Marshall University in an autism supportive program, and Aiden is home this semester from WVU, and he does have ADHD and dyscalculia, which is like the math version of dyslexia. And so that was not diagnosed until after he finished up at Wheeling Park High School, which is really unfortunate that sometimes stuff just gets missed. And I was pushing for this years ago, but I had tutored him so much that he kind of didn't fit the criteria at the time. So sometimes that's just how these things work out. And then Mara is 14 and has ADHD and anxiety, and is autistic as well. And crazy bright, huge vocabulary, and but has visual processing disorder as well. So it's just different kinds of brains that I'm amazed at the neuroplasticity that they have that works around a lot of these things. So Ian is really good at coding. Aiden is really good at like set design and designing like visual design for things and building them. He can just come up with an idea and make it happen. And Mara, despite her visual processing disorder, can make loom bracelets. And there's something therapeutic about that for her because I can't make them. And then she taught herself how to knit over Thanksgiving.
Can she teach me?
I know, right? Yeah, I have no clue. So she's just this tiny, feisty little person who I just gave her like a Vidal Sassoon haircut, and she's super cute. And yeah, she's so cute. And she's just a little bit feral, and we just adore her. And she and her daddy sit and do puppets and things like that. And so like she doesn't want you to look at her face when you're talking to her. So she started out by doing these little puppets, and these were dogs, and they had different personalities because she wants you to look over to the side and not look at her eyes. Because of which is a really common thing among both ADHD people and autistic people. They struggle with that eye contact, where they're either doing way too much of it because they're thinking, make eye contact, act normal. That then they end up like really going laser beam on people, or they just really can't make any eye contact at all. So I find that I make too little now because I try not to be too much eye contact with my kids because my neurodivergent kids find it stressful. So I find that I really have to make an effort to make some eye contact, especially with people who are not in my household, because I'm just so used to trying to make it work for them. And then my youngest is Elle, and Elle is 12 and has had some mental health issues this past year with the move and everything, and early puberty and the hormones. And so it's been a real struggle for Elle this past year. But Elle is doing very well right now and is in a micro school that's kind of Montessori and nature based and is really thriving, but it has been a slog over the past 5 years. Just I really didn't know that we we to be okay.
Wow.
So to kind of finally be there is really encouraging. And I will say that getting my process has been, I had Ian, and I always knew Ian was different. He was hyperlexic. He read well by the time he turned 4. That's not usual. That's not normal. And it's actually kind of a sign that something's up. He couldn't eat solids till he was 2, but he was reading when he turned 4. So there were differences, very uneven skills. It's very normal for autistic people. They're going to have a very uneven skill set. So he went to school, and he was in at Notre Dame. He was at a magnet school and really thriving and doing wonderfully. We moved to Wheeling, and it was a struggle, and it kind of fell apart. So I started pursuing what's going on with my kid. And eventually went to Wheeling Jesuit and got a special ed degree in addition to my English ed degree that I'd had before. And that has been a wonderful thing to have because I could advocate for my own kids. And then that's turned into future. Well, what am I going to do with this? I don't want to teach. My hearing isn't super great, so I don't really want to teach. I don't want to deal with the parent-child kinds of things to that extent for such large groups of people. So it's just not where my heart is, but my heart is like making sure that kids who are not yet ready to learn or don't have what they need to learn, getting them to that point. So I'm definitely going more toward a social work direction. So I'm really excited about that. I've been serving as an AmeriCorps for the last 3 years. I took 1 year off, but over the last 4 years, I've done it for 3. So I'm with Try This West Virginia right now. We do mini grants for healthy food and physical activity. And but that's going to help me to, then I'll have free tuition to get my master's degree in social work, probably at Marshall. There's a campus here in South Charleston. So that's my future plan, because I want to work with the kids who are coming out of foster care, who haven't had anybody coming to their IEP meetings, and or like helping them to bridge that gap between living in foster care or living in a group home, and how do I live out in a community, because I previously served with House of Hagar Catholic Worker and at the Mother Jones House, and I saw people who had come out of foster care and who had maybe some housing provided and had some Social Security money provided. And unfortunately, they also had people who'd come along and say, hey, we're your friends, and didn't have good intentions. And so then they would destabilize this person's situation. And so then you've got this person who has trauma and now has lost their housing, may have unfortunately learned to self-medicate their trauma with street drugs, and they don't have anything that they can really lean on. And so that's what I really want to get into, is catch those kids as they're coming out of foster care, working with DRS, Division of Rehabilitative Services, or some other kind of agency that targets these kids in particular. That's really where my heart is.
That's so
I have kids who've been through DRS. Yeah, well, and childhood in West Virginia is in crisis.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We have so many. Our percentage of children in foster care, I can't remember. I've looked at I think we have about 7,000 kids, and we're a small state. And then I looked at Indiana, and like per capita, we have a far larger number of children compared to my home state of Indiana. And Indiana has a meth problem and has, we have, that's not even taking into account our kinship and grandparents and great-great-grandparents or great-grandparents that are raising children. So we've got these grand families that are, multiple generations have been wiped out. And so there are these people trying to take care of these kids, and they don't have access to technology, or they don't know how to do this. And so trying to help those kinds of families figure out what's next, and really what can we do to make life work for this generation of kids that are coming up with parents who've been in substance abuse disorder, who may not even be here anymore. That's really where my heart is. Having been at the Mother Jones Center, working with the fundraiser Urban Mobile Playground with Kate Marshall, all of that is prevention. That's saying we need to have collaborative play, non-competitive play. We need to have it in trauma-informed situations where, and the cool thing about the fundraiser is that it can be moved from place to place. And so it unpacks, and it's this truck full of fun activities. There's no guns, there's no weapons. It's all just finding ways to be creative with these toys that are packed on the truck. And kids just go absolutely bananas for it.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to find, is help kids find that joy. And so I've been looking toward older ages, like where can you find joy and meaning and connection and belonging? Because these traumatized kids, most of them are going to have ADHD, or at least will be diagnosed with that. So what can we do to help them get plugged into, whether it's animals or art or music, anything that they can get excited about? That's what I would like to work toward. And then how can we make that a job, or how can we get you into Job Corps or AmeriCorps so that you're on a track where there's accountability and focus that's leading toward how can we get you into a healthy life, where you're happy and able to look forward to a future. That's a big thing.
That's
So
amazing. I mean,
there's
that's quite a journey of just what you said, things that
I'm impressed. Like, wow. I mean, I
Oh.
was impressed by you, but wow.
It's gonna be exciting to see
It's
you getting into it.
it's been things that I feel like a lot of these things that have happened to me, I can't say for everybody, but things that have happened for me have caused me pain or have caused me struggle or whatever. But like, what can I do to glorify God with this? And what can I do to make things, take what I learn out of these situations and make life better for people in my community?
Mhm.
Because if I've survived it, how have I survived it? And if I've overcome it, how have I overcome it? And how can that transfer
Yeah.
to someone else? And that's really where my heart is, because I just want to see people find ways to cope and recognize that, yeah, bad stuff is bad, and these situations that we're dealing with are really super difficult and painful. But how can we use that to build up some personal strength and go forward and alleviate the pain of others? Because if we can make connections and look to see how we can help other people, it helps us.
Yeah, definitely. And as a whole too. As a
Yeah,
whole.
yeah.
Thank you.
That was
So there's my intro.
Yeah, no,
Too much.
it's
No, I
fantastic.
think we can end there, honestly. And just
Covered,
like,
it covered a lot of stuff, so that's good. Yeah. So Casey, tell us about you, and then
Yeah.
if we get into stuff, we get into stuff. However, if we get into these questions or other ones, we'll just keep going.
it's hard to kind of like, there's so many points in there that's like, oh, my story's different, but they overlap in weird, unique ways. So hopefully as I wind through, I'll hit on some of that. So our family's always been a little bit different. We didn't grow up in the Catholic faith. I mean, we converted all to Catholicism as adults. I mean, a completely secular background. We weren't like atheist or agnostic. We just didn't think about it, like, so that's to start off. But we're also different in that, like, even as young as age 5, my brother, they knew something was off, and he got his like both gifted and ADHD diagnosis at age 5, like, and so that was our whole intro. We'd all later find out and be able to track it back. But you mentioned going to Marshall University. That was like where he used to go to, like, there was a grade school up near that Marshall campus in Charles. I forgot the name of it, but that's where he went for, because they had him in special ed at first up there. And then they're like, oh, this is ADHD. But then with me, where I was the quiet sort and I could just get good grades, like it didn't come up. Like you'd see in my permanent records, Casey stares out the window a lot and has trouble daydreaming or putting on her coat, things like that. But like I just got by, and like, so it sounds really cliche, but no one actually flagged me for ADHD until like not even undergrad, but all the way into pharmacy school, and halfway through it's like being an adult away from, that's when crap started hitting the fan, because like oh, you're expected to go live without your mother. This sounds really mature, but without your mom and stuff like that. And then people be like, well, just get a planner. Like you heard it, you know what they tell people. Just get a planner.
Get a planner.
I
That'll
know.
fix
Oh my
everything.
God, I'm cured. We don't need to have this meeting now. But what was funny, it's like retroactively, as young as like 18, like anyone that's met me, like even with Jamie, they never told me, but they're like, this girl's probably spiky in profile. So as I went on and found out that my burnout wasn't just going with and other stuff, that's when I started pursuing the autistic diagnosis. And it's not I hate to say like high function or low function or severe stuff, but I mean it hits to like ADHD is how I just abbreviate it, like kind of that.
Oz ADHD.
Like, no,
AUSD.
well, you can say I just like do hashtag like AU. I mean, like just kind of a
Yeah.
mix. Like, I don't really know how to. I'm still waiting. Actually, like I do have like a neurospecialist, but then stuff came up with his mom. So like, and it's backed up. Like anywhere you go, like at WVU, it's like 6 months back for neurology. I mean, Jamie probably knows all that stuff. Let's see, but when I started
AU
DHD, yeah.
AUDHD.
DHD is actually a common, it's a common internet for autistic and ADHD. So that's it's a common abbreviation now.
Yeah.
It's ironic what cued me into it was something like that. I actually read this really good book. I'd recommend it, called Dust in the Blood. It's by a theologian, Jessica Koblenz. It's like depression and theology. And I was reading about her experience, and I was reading about this other like journalist, like Andrew Solomon's experience with journalism and stuff. Not journalism, depression. It's like, this isn't matching mine, and none of my antidepressants have ever hit this, even before I had child loss, even before this or that. I might not actually be like, they call it the depression anxiety pipeline to autism with females. It's like, this isn't hitting, and even TMS going through 2 rounds of it, it's like, this isn't giving us the results we would expect in someone that's actually, I mean, I'm not saying like actually like I'm have depression symptoms as a side effect of this going undiagnosed. Like, that's probably kind of why I'm in a better place now. I have more realistic expectations. It's like, you keep trying to find meds and it's not where, like, I mean, that's part of it. I mean, right now I don't have my Adderall right now, so I'm kind of just spinning off into different directions with this.
Oh, you're doing all right. What is TMS? What's that stand for?
Transcranial magnetic.
Oh, right. Okay.
Like, it's just like, it's not electroshock. Like, electroshock therapy is really invasive. Like, it's not like you see in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which, I mean, actually,
Yeah.
my cousin actually administered that, and it's not bad like you would think it is now. But I mean, when they like just send pulses, like bolts to your head. Like, it's not bad at all. It's like, you don't have to, like, you can do it outpatient or anything. You don't anesthesia. But so if you do know anyone that has depression, I've recommended it to other people. It's worked well for them. Like, I don't have my eyelashes on now with the person who does it. Like, it worked really well for her husband when I recommended it, but not me. So that's when I was like, I need to go see a neurologist, like, legit, because this isn't matching up. And it's like, Jamie's been really helpful just listening to her stories about herself and her kids, because my husband, very bright, genius, but not neurodivergent. He's just talented. Like, God bless him. Like, I don't know where that came from, but guess one of us has to. Like, with my neurodivergence, though, I'm more of like the pie in the sky kind of. I'm not like a dreamy floater, like not detached like to reality, but I'm not organized like Jamie. Like I told her earlier, well, in that group chat, she struck me as like a cryptid, that she was able to do all this without medication. I know I sound like ridiculous like right now, but
no, you're good.
but my husband and I, we met in pharmacy school because I was able to fake being, smart enough to get, I don't know how, but I guess that's my superpower, of being able to fake it to get through like stuff, but not enough to actually implement. It's the implementation status of anything.
Yeah.
But I was never really into pharmacy. I just wanted to get over here and start my kids. And ironically, I had a very different religious experience. Like, I joined a Catholic church because at the time, Wheeling, Charleston, this was before Branson, was like known as like the most anarchist district in the world for Catholicism. That might have been a joke or hyperbole, but like, it was very like, everybody is welcome, come wear jeans, we just want you here. Like, Blessed Sacrament is amazing. Like, that's where my dad's ashes and Ben's ashes are. And it's like, so I got this very rosy in a good way, like, progressive, like what Mikey was like, that's what Blessed Sacrament felt like to me. So getting up to Wheeling was a very huge cultural shock. I don't know who's watching or recording, listening, but I don't want to bash Steubenville or that area, but learning of that branch of Catholicism and like, charismatic groups, like, what the heck is this? This
Very
is
different.
not.
Yeah, very different.
I was not expecting that coming out of RCIA. I mean, I did RCIA when I was like 18 and then went to college and didn't mess with it. And I didn't really even think about it much more until I got here. It's like, okay, we're going to be a Catholic family now. Let's go find some godparents. And well, unfortunately, I found those over at Wheeling Jesuit. That's all I'll say on that. And that, Jamie already touched on what kaboom happened at Wheeling Jesuit. And that was very destabilizing and losing all those connections. But one connection that stayed and what brought me in the Catholic Committee of Appalachia was Mikey, because that's Mikey has that power. He sees you, he understands, he doesn't dismiss anything. I mean, I don't want to like be hagiographic about it, like make him in the same, I mean, there is that same picture of Mikey, but like that between him and Jamie, that was like the first time I felt heard, and like feeling heard and not like taken out of context and misunderstood. That's kind of rare. I think Jamie could say that too as a neurodivergent. Like people, I'm not saying any group of people, that's just a tendency that happens to us all our life. So we just kind of tend to, if something goes wrong, like automatically blame ourselves, because that's just the pattern. Like she mentioned shame earlier. I didn't get shame from my parents because it turns out, hey, we're all actually ADHD, like legit diagnosed. And I'll go back in more my family, but Mikey was the first time that like I felt at home in this, this land is home to me. Like that theme is like, oh wow, I can get into this. I can be taken seriously in the Catholic faith as like, a lay accidental theologian. I'm not a theologian. Like I'm not gonna sit here. I do it as a hobby, but I'm not gonna be so arrogant to be like, I'm a theologian. But Mikey took me seriously enough, and that gave me enough confidence to keep coming, like reach out to you and like be like, let's meet some great people like Liana and stuff. So
Yeah.
it did, but so his loss was really hard because that came at a time when I was trying to build myself back up, like after getting a little bit of confidence chips. But going back to my family, like my struggles make sense. Like this was a year or two ago. My Aunt Leah on my mom's side died when I was 2. I don't remember her, but it was a cocaine overdose. They think they didn't do an autopsy. It kind of might have actually been murder, but anyway, she was in rehab a couple times. I was going because they have them write to their family. It's like I was reading all these notes, and it came very clear to me that Leah was probably neurodivergent, but no one was picking this up because it was the 80s. I mean, she's just a very poetic, beautiful soul. Like it was just everything, like Jamie said, was jumping out to me. And then how my mom is, it's like, this makes sense, but her family was that typical waspy, they didn't pick it up. They're like, Leah's a problem. Oh, she wrecked her life by doing drugs, but she was doing drugs as self-treating because it came up in her notes. It's like, she was there, like, also, I mean, it was mainly for the coke, but like they thought, okay, alcoholism, but she was never an alcoholic and didn't read to that to me. And she was even telling me, I don't think it's my problem. She would just do a couple to loosen up the wheels because she was so anxious about being public, but then go on to more. But so it was all, to me, it was clear. And then reading this back to my mom, like, she's like, you know what? I always thought so too. Like, because everyone else in my family, like my Aunt Sarah, is just like just the typical narrative you get from anybody in America. So I can see what Jamie's saying about, like the people like in Wheeling being housed and stuff. It's like, oh, they're just addicts and stuff. It's like, have you ever thought like that they're self-treating because they've gotten this deck stacked against them? So I think where Jamie said was like a really good place to start, because it ties in, like, even though I didn't have that, I'm coming more from the adults with trouble thing, not the child side, but it all comes together in a picture. I didn't realize that, I mean, I knew it was bad, like when I was telling you guys in West Virginia, like no one bothers to tell anyone their problems anymore. I mean, they do, but we all have trouble, so it doesn't seem weird to be like, oh, my sister, brother, whoever died, because that happens on a regular basis. I didn't realize that we were like triple Indiana. I thought Indiana being like a Midwest state was just as bad as us, but no, we have something worse, I guess. So yay.
Yeah. I mean, it's extractive industries that have caused so much poverty, and then it's Sackler stuff that has over medicated the injuries that people have gotten while doing some of these really difficult jobs that we have here in West Virginia, and then they just poured all of these opiates into West Virginia, and of course this is how we ended up with this situation.
Yeah.
My brother wanted me to watch
it's heartbreaking.
I haven't seen it, but you said Stackler, like he was wanting me to watch this series, like not the Hulu one. There's two different series on Stackler. Have you seen
Mhm.
them? Okay, I haven't watched them yet. Like he tried to have me watch the pilot, and I was like, oh my god, I can't do this right
It's very
now.
upsetting. Yeah.
Is that what, the Dope Sick, or which one? What?
No, it's not Dope Sick. I forgot what he'll tell me. I can't remember who it was.
I can't remember the titles either.
It has
I've read Dope
freaking
Sick, the book too. It's quite good.
Michael J. Fox in it, I think, is in the other one, but we put on a pile. I was like, I can't watch this right now, so I'll go back to it.
Yeah.
But
If you think of that one, let me know. And
I will,
get it out
definitely.
there. Yeah, yeah. When
Probably be good if we could have like if we could do a Facebook post too with like lots of links and videos and things
Yes.
like that might, things we found helpful.
Definitely, yeah.
It's not, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask you, as you figured things out, as you were an adult by the time you were figuring out that, where you were with this, getting the diagnosis, the medications, you're talking about all the drugs that are already in West Virginia. How did you decide, or which medications did you use, and why did you use them? How did you decide to use them in the first place?
Oh, with me, it was kind of simple. Like, what works in families typically tends to work in families. So it's just my psychiatrist, like my brother, my mom and brother were all, like on, particular Adderall. So like I went on it and it worked for me. And I've tried to others. Like I've tried, like when I felt it wasn't working as much, like the psychiatrist, okay, we can try Vyvanse or methylphenidate, and it just basically the psychiatrist trial and error. I mean, it's not perfect, but now, I mean, it's just, and like, I mean, I still have a therapist and psychiatrist, so I mean, none of mine's like street stuff or anything. I'm not like stigmatizing street people, but I'm lucky. Well, I forgot to mention this aspect. We have what's called a mental health care desert, particularly in the tri-state area. I couldn't get I was having to drive home to Charleston to my family doctor to get my psych meds met because I couldn't find a psychiatrist that would, a psychiatrist in general, and then one that would prescribe my controlled drugs. The only way I finally got one and a therapist like in the back door is when my son died, and they're like, oh, we should probably help her so she doesn't actually have PTSD and get worse. And so they did actually. That was really good. I did not actually have PTSD, or Jamie was talking about CPTSD, I think, coming in, but that wasn't from my son or anything. But so I got lucky there, but not many people do get lucky. So that's,
well, you had to be triaged in the most horrible way.
Yeah, exactly.
To get that care, and
that's horrible. I think
really pretty appalling. It had to already be a crisis in order for you to get the care that you needed.
Yeah, you're
I just having moved to Charleston, I was surprised. What's that?
Okay. Oh, on the screen you're like slowing up.
Oh.
So just like your mouth wasn't matching up with your face. It's not a big deal. I was just trying to follow. Okay, I think it buffered up.
Yeah, there was a bump there.
You sync up. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but it was like I was like trying to follow you. I was like, oh no. But yeah,
right.
You're right.
I was able, honestly, to get everything that I needed from a general practitioner in Wheeling, which is really strange. It's very uneven what you're able to get. So I just had it done in office at my general practitioner. I just did the ADHD testing, and they said, yep. And when I did it, it was just like a screener, and Dan did a copy. I made a photocopy of it and had him do a copy, and I did a copy. And so it was like basically 0 to 3 for all these different things. And most of mine were 2s and 3s. And there were some things that Dan scored higher than I did, and because he notices them more. And there were things that he did lower because he doesn't see how it impacts me. But basically it matched up pretty closely. So I was thankful just to have someone outside of my brain, but who knows me very well, able to verify that, yeah, this is kind of where the functioning lies. And so I was able to get on Strattera summer of 2021, and it didn't do much for me, but they wanted to start me out on a non-stimulant, and it was fine. It did help for a little bit, but it didn't really do a whole lot. The benefit wore off pretty quickly. And so then fall of 2022, I got onto immediate dose Adderall on a very, very low dose. And I have the option of taking a second pill. if I need to get more done that day. But generally, I find that messes with my sleep. But Adderall has made me feel more like myself than I ever have. Like I actually feel.
Another hiccup.
Yeah, her face is frozen.
Yeah. Oh,
But I
there she
feel
is.
like I'm able to. I feel like I'm able to be present, and I'm able to get things done that are important to me. And so that's huge. And especially with planning on going back into grad school, I need to have that.
When
need
do
to
you
have
plan
that
on going
together.
back?
Maybe this fall.
Oh, good luck. I didn't know that, so this is new. I just want to make one clarification. I wasn't triaged for ADHD. Like, I was already diagnosed with ADHD before Ben's law, so that was back in, I was like 23 years old. I just want to clarify that wasn't what, I already had a psychiatrist. It was just moving to Wheeling. I couldn't find a healthcare provider because everyone's like, we don't want to prescribe controls, even though this is what works for you and has worked for you for 10 years. So that's just the difference. So,
Yeah.
yay.
You we are riding the train here, or riding the waves, because I'm trying to think if we're covering everything for people that watch this later on. So Casey, excuse me, you're married, you have a couple kids, and you lost a child, and you're in Wheeling,
Yes.
and you went to pharmacy school, diagnosed in pharmacy school.
Yes.
Can you tell us? And today you said that you're not taking your Adderall. You don't have your dosage for.
Well,
Adderall.
just not today. Like, it's just where the
Right.
holidays timed up. Like, I'll have it
Yeah.
next week.
Yeah, it's not a problem. I was just
Yeah.
what I'm leading into is, could you kind of describe what it's like between when you're on Adderall and when you're not? Like Jamie was just talking about how she's able to organize or do things, what are the specific things that you can and cannot do with your ADHD in terms of like, that iceberg that says this is what ADHD is. It's fidgety and it's this up here, and then under the water, it's all these different things.
This is
Could
where
you explain,
probably
like
I don't wanna-
executive dysfunction kind of? I don't think people understand what what a disability it is not to have executive function or
Yeah.
very well.
Let me pause you because this is where it'd be really helpful to bring Krista in. The person has to experience me without it. And like, so you guys will get to see my husband here in just a second. So if you guys want to keep talking, I'll go get him.
Okay, all right, yeah. But Jamie, you can tell a difference.
My delay over the summer. Yeah, my delay over the summer was basically I just wasn't able to see my Wheeling person because I was back and forth between Wheeling and Charleston, getting our house in Wheeling ready to sell while getting this house settled. And so I just wasn't able to get it. And then I got a practitioner here, which GPs do not do it. Don't do any psych meds here down in Charleston. I was really surprised. Huge difference.
Yeah.
And so I got one, but it takes time to get one. Enough antidepressant and anxiety meds, but I didn't have any ADHD meds for the whole summer. Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
Christopher Eugene Bells, my
Hello.
better
Hello.
She was asking if you want to pose the question to him again. Like,
Yep.
She was briefly asking, okay, like, what's it like not having like any executive functioning, and like, so what's your experience living with me versus when I'm medicated versus not medicated?
Okay. Well, this is unmedicated right now. But generally speaking, when unmedicated, Casey is completely unfocused. Even things that she wants to do,
like this.
Like right now, she has reading for some group tonight that she has wanted, like actually very much wanted to do that reading for 3 or 4 days and has not. Cannot start.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it very hard, like, to have that plan. Like, Jamie's like, oh, like, I have this idea, goal. I think that just all goes away.
Or
I don't have
alternately, she'll have a plan for something, and 30% of the way into putting that plan into action, she will take a left-hand turn and go off into a completely different plan for something else unrelated to what she's currently doing. and then a third of the way through that one, she'll go off onto something else, and nothing is ever completed.
I can
On the
understand
flip
that.
side of that, there are also positives. When she is unmedicated, she is
Nicer.
much nicer. She is much more affectionate. She is better on the like the mothering parental end of things. Now when she's medicated,
I turned into a cloistered nun. Like I want my own hermitage.
yeah, she gets very on focus, like with the reading that she's meant to do for several days. Instead, she would start reading and she would not stop reading until she was done, even if that meant she started in the afternoon and finished at 11 a.m. the next day. She would just keep going until it was done.
All the way through, yeah.
Or things like when properly focused, or I'd say over focused, she'll do things like she got interested in the works of Dante and went so far down the rabbit hole on that she is now like
Besties with the family.
has been in communication with the descendants of his relatives in Italy and is friends with them, and was involved in
They're actually coming here now.
She was involved in getting an illustrated version of the Inferno done with his assistant or something like that. I mean, like she will laser focus on a target and cannot be stopped. And honestly, that's not really at medicated, that's at over medicated.
Yeah. Because
yeah,
I was gonna say, where do you find that balance?
There is a spot in the middle. If we can keep her on the appropriate amount of Adderall over a long period of time. There have been shortages where sometimes she can't get it for long periods of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, when where she needs to be, it works out a lot better.
Yeah. So it's a constant kind of up and down thing. You're not going to necessarily get to a level and be like, okay, I'm dealing, my condition is medicated, I'm treated, and I'll just go from here on out. And it's like that.
It's very up and down, especially with medication shortages and things like that. Sometimes we won't be able to get something filled for 2-3 days late. It's been like a week or more late before that they just haven't had supply to give us. So
the longest time was 2 weeks. That happened. It usually happens back when all the kids are going back to school. And it sounds so lame, me being almost 40. Well, I'm 37, but it's like at the same time all the kids are trying. It's like, oh look, I'm trying, because like Jamie said, people don't even believe in ADHD for adults. This it just goes away, I guess. I don't know, it doesn't. It actually gets worse when you get older. So
yeah.
And there's so many other factors. So like stress can really kind of mitigate how well your medication is working. Sleep will mitigate how well your medication is working. Alcohol, whether you're eating or not. So if you take your medication and it happens to be one of the ones that also has kind of an appetite suppressant effect. And so if you take the meds and you don't eat first, then you just don't eat because you can't stand the thought of food. And so then that's going to it's going to impact your blood sugar. So there's just a lot of factors for people who don't have a lot of executive function to begin with that really kind of set us up for a lot of trouble. So for me, that just has to be, it has to be structure. It has to be like stuff has to be on autopilot or it won't happen. So like I put out a month of meds in a tray, like somebody's grandma. I've got like all my meds for a month in a tray, and I keep a bottle of water right next to my bathroom so that as I'm coming out of the bathroom, I have to see my meds sitting right there. And then I have granola bars nearby because I think, well, I've taken my meds. I need to hurry up and eat something or I'm not going to be able to function. So I have to totally idiot proof my life because I will get distracted by shiny things and find stuff that is more pressing or more interesting to think about. And so, and oftentimes they're really good things.
That's more interesting.
But
I've also found I've lost the ability to do long-term reading. I was an English major. And when I took my special ed degree stuff at WJU over 10 years ago, I had a 4.0, but I've lost the ability to do long and focused reading. So I have to come up with things like there's an app called Voice Dream that you can put a web address into it and it'll read the whole web page. It highlights the word that it's on or the sentence that it's on, and then double highlights the word that it's on. And you can make the font bigger and you can choose the voice and all that kind of stuff. So if I can see it and it's being read to me, I can focus.
Well,
But I
then,
can't
yes.
just sit and look.
So other than like the medications, there's a whole bunch of other tools to help you focus and organize and get places on time and plan and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I together some of those too. Like, you know how you said put links and stuff? Like I can compile some, and I think Jamie can like put that link in and things like that.
Yeah. Do
This
you
one
guys
can
use
read
your phones a lot? Are you addicted to your phones for
oh yeah
for to help? Yeah.
That's also like
this is on my iPad, so but my phone's right next to me.
Yeah.
but that's also a
Problem.
neurodivergent thing, because you see people getting all preachy, like, oh, you're just in general to people, you're on your phone all the time. It's like, that's because low brainwave, if I call it out of spoons, if you're already like tired and can't, I wouldn't call it doom scrolling, because like, well, okay, Chris would argue, but just scrolling along, but it's like, that's because at some point that's all we have energy left for, and it's not like, I wouldn't call it's like our lives are miserable because we're addicted to our phones. It's the other way around. I mean, like, we're having trouble, so that's why we're on our phone. Like, I think people get that backwards a lot and don't understand that.
Yeah.
It's a calming thing. So we're trying to self-regulate in whatever way we can, and there are healthier ways to self-regulate and less healthy. And so sometimes that's about balance with our devices. And so, but it can be really challenging to find things that are coping that aren't unhealthy coping skills.
How did
and also for me, like, to model that for my kids.
How did you do it before phones? Well, I guess if you didn't know you had it, you didn't know you know. I mean, but how do people that didn't? Or in West Virginia, there are a lot of dead spots. There are a lot of places where you can't get phone access. And how do those people cope?
I think we were outside.
Yeah, it sounds
being
like back
out
in my
gardening,
day,
being out in nature.
Oh yeah.
I didn't get out. I was like, I'm about when my 9 or 10 years younger. It's a decade enough generation to make a difference to where like I didn't have a device, but like I was like on dance competition troop to like let energy out some of that way, which I mean, you don't see people like in there's like, I'm on a dance competition troop now winning and stuff like that, but it kind of helped. And I mean, I still had issues, like she mentioned the eye contact thing with Mara earlier. I still have like I joked to Chris that I'd honestly be better off like in like Eastern European societies, the way they're blunt, they don't make eye contact, they don't have the fake smiles. It's like, I should have been Slavic. Like, I'm not saying that as like a slur.
Culturally,
I mean that.
yeah.
As part of the whole ADHD mental illness constellation or whatever that Casey has, she has a big issue with being perceived in any way. She doesn't want people to look at her or listen to her when she's doing things, or like, unless she's directly interacting with them, she just wants to be able to exist without anybody
anonymous. Yeah.
It's like, I want to be invited into the room, but I don't want you to see me in the room, but I want you to still acknowledge and appreciate that I'm in the room, but don't talk to me like I'm in the room. It's like, really, it's insane.
And
I will say this, it is extremely frustrating sometimes. But it's just something you gotta learn to live with.
Okay, so my next question,
Casey, something you mentioned was being
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, with Christopher here, I'd love to get the whole dating scene then, how that works.
You mentioned spoon or being out of spoons.
Being out of spoons, yeah, I like that. I love that term. Yeah.
Dating, like, okay, I'll go, I guess, Jeannie's question. It kind of froze up on Jamie again, so I'll answer Jeannie's first. Like, I never actually dated. I just blundered into any boyfriend I ever had, and like, it worked. So I have a relatively uncomplicated life with that. So like, we were both in pharmacy school, like, and so we were in pharmacy school together.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. It's like we went to class together all the time, and eventually we were like, should we date? Yeah.
So
and I also feel like if it took more effort than that, at least on Casey's end, it probably wouldn't have happened.
It wouldn't have happened, yeah.
The focus and the ability to like really devote a lot of energy into that, probably not
Wasn't
really
there.
And this is probably something I have had the privilege of not thinking about, like, because I joke, like, if God forbid, if something happened to him, like I would legit join like a cloister, like a Benedictine monastery. But it's like, I don't know how people would be on like dating apps and do that today. Like that's just something I haven't had to think about, and something I wouldn't think about even if I were back on the mark. Like, so I don't know how to address that issue for people with neurodivergence. I got lucky in that area. I don't know if anybody
Kind
else
of falling into a relationship because of circumstances, as opposed to going out on the prowl. Yeah.
And then what were you asking about being out of spoons, Jamie?
Oh, just to address that, like people may not be familiar with the idea of spoon theory, which is that everybody starts out with a number of spoons, and somebody who is neurodivergent may start out with fewer spoons. And unfortunately, so like we're saying like symbolic spoons, but for somebody who's neurodivergent, they may start out with fewer spoons, but everything they need to do that day costs them more spoons. And so when you're out of spoons, you're out of spoons, and you can borrow them from tomorrow, but then you're in debt and you're crashing and burning. So spoon theory is really helpful for people who have chronic conditions of any kind. It's a good way to think about protecting yourself from exhaustion.
You said chronic fatigue comes with neurodivergency a lot. It's like, and sometimes what people don't understand is like, it takes a lot of spoons to even do something you like. Like this will be the only thing I have scheduled for today. Like, and this varies from person to person, but some people can go have a nice social dinner with their family or go to friends. Like I'll probably go back to sleep after this. Like not because I'm like a lazy loaf, but like I've talked to people and it's like, okay, I'm not going to talk to people for 3 days.
I've peopled enough.
And it's like like in comparison with I don't have any mental illness that I know of, and you know I can get up in the morning, I can get the girls ready for school, do the dishes, cook lunch, whatever. But and that's not that bad for me because those are all like 1 spoon tasks. And if I've got 10 spoons for the day, I can finish all that up and still have 3 or 4 spoons left to do whatever I want to with the rest of the day. But Casey, she's starting out with less. She might only have 5 spoons for the day, and each of those tasks are like 2 or 3 spoon tasks. So she can get 1 or 2 of them out of the way, and now she can't do anything else even if she wants to.
But we order pizza so the kids get fed, just in case anyone's worrying if I neglect my kids. I don't. But I mean, they get fed, they're happy to help, they're fine.
Yeah.
Just disclaimer on that.
They're beautiful girls.
I make sure everything gets taken care of.
Yeah, and that puts a lot on the spouse. Or
it does.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky, not everyone, and Jamie knows a lot more about the foster system than I do, but like I was lucky. Like, I mean, I'm not saying anything, but this was, a planned family, like wanted kids, and I have a family. It's like, what do people do? I mean, this is also becomes a pro-life issue if you don't have the spoons, you don't have this, a husband to help you with the kids, and the kids didn't start falling through the cracks. I mean,
and like I said earlier, there are days when it could be very frustrating, but I mean I understand that it's due to her mental illness, and
it's not fun to live in her head either.
I understand that she can't do anything about it, and that's something that I've had to work with over the years. It's getting used to that and really coming to understand what's going on, and and how to help her best, and things like that. And some days I know when she's out of spoons, I have to take the lead, and I might have to do most of it. Other days when she's doing very well, and there's really no way of knowing ahead of time when those days are going to.
Also kind of how we found out about the autism too, because I didn't want it to all be on. I mean, nobody ever wants it to be all on their partner, but trying to do my part and like doing my half of it to get better, and finding out, oh, we've been hitting at the wrong thing, and that's where I've started pursuing that. It's been helpful. So
that's so exciting. I love to hear that you're making progress. I like that you're finding something that's like making more sense.
Yeah,
I always love to when people find that.
It is, and like just having just having a framework of like, this is why it hasn't worked, and now this is how we can work from it without the blame and shame. I mean, not that he blamed me, but just like stigma in general, like society, like. So this is why it is.
There's such a need to be self-aware with this disability or superpower, however you have to be self-aware and reflective of what's going
And
on.
it's not a strong suit.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a strong suit, but you're forced into doing it, and it seems like you two are both very, and your significant others are both very attuned to what that you need to be attentive to it. It affects your daily life. It affects every single part of your world.
I was lucky to have a good therapist, and not everybody gets that. Like Kendall's been amazing.
Kendall is great. Kendall is great.
Like on board, like, and not dismissive too when I brought up like, okay, you've been great these years, got me through the past few. I think it's something more, and they're like, yeah, okay. They wasn't like, haha, no, you're an adult. That's because that. My mom is brought up, and like I think one doctor actually laughed at her, and I mean I wasn't at that appointment, or I would have probably throttled him. But it's like people need to take that seriously. It's like Anthony Hopkins was just diagnosed, so that it can be late in life. Like so.
Yeah.
But I was lucky. I had a therapist, and some people might not ever get a therapist to have that help. And then I had Jamie giving her own feedback. So I mean, I had people around to help me with to outsource my own self-awareness.
Yeah.
So.
I'm sort of looking at the time. We don't have much time left, and I know you guys want to get onto other things.
I've got a kiddo who has a med check here. I need to go get her. But I would love to. I would love to continue if you guys want to pick up another day.
This is a great launching point. If Jeannie wants to get back, and like we probably I didn't even look at this list. But sorry.
No, we covered a lot in here. That's what I was like. I wanted to see if we had any more, but with 4 minutes left now, there's no point because we would go on. I know
you have to meet Dan. I mean, I've met him
once.
once.
And we want to meet Dan. Yeah.
He's known as the rare Dan O'Hare. He's hard to find, so he's always busy.
It is. It's like a unicorn.
Especially the last few years.
It's a unicorn. So.
Yeah. Well, I really want to thank
in real life.
I want to thank both of you for coming on here and talking about this, because it's a major ordeal. I mean, people don't. That's what I wanted to get into, is that the rest of the world doesn't understand what you're dealing with on a daily basis. So
it's like somebody keeps changing the channel in your head, and you don't have the remote. Yeah. Is a lot of what it feels like. And for me to think, when I heard that the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, that's my whole life. The other people don't have that.
Yep.
So
I don't get to pick where my focus or stress goes without not having control.
That's the thing. A lot of people will say that it's, ADD or whatever is a superpower, and yes, it is. You can have incredible focus, but you don't get to decide what you're going to focus on.
Right. Yeah.
Your brain will latch onto something, and you're going to do that whether you want to or not.
And it sounds really people infantilize it a lot, like where you don't get to pick. It's like I was trying to freaking teach myself Serbian, and like if somebody else were like listening down outside, be like, oh, you're just like some manic pixie dream girl, like from the like it's like I'm not that. Like no, I'm not trying to be quirky or fun or eccentrically odd. No, that's just the disease. So I not disease, like just you know what I'm saying.
But, your situation.
I've got to go. Thanks so much. It was lovely to chat with you guys. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, and thank you for organizing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. If you want to finish your thought there, Casey, go ahead.
There wasn't basically anything to finish. Just like I was going to thank you for organizing it, because I think this is a great start to even talk about it, because like this conversation isn't happening. I mean, it's happened in our household because we have to deal with it. But
right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I will let you go. And
good.
If you want to have more of these meetings, this was fun. Like
I'm usually fun most days if you want input on anything.
And you work from home, is that right, Christopher? So you're
I have kind of worked my schedule around this. I work at the pharmacy at the hospital, but I work weekend midnight shifts. So that I can get my 40 hours in over the weekend at night while the kids are at home.
Yeah.
And during the week, I can be at home and I can make sure that the kids get to school and get home and such, in case there's ever any issues. If she has a down day and can't do anything, I'm there to make sure that the kids get where they need to be.
Yeah.
And because of that, I've finagled my schedule so that I only work at times when the kids don't have to be anywhere and Casey can be here with them.
Yeah, and then the weekends are pretty easy because like I could just take them to a movie or something.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah, you guys have gone on some pretty cool adventures. Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you in person again.
I know.
Great.
And meet you too, Christopher, in person. This is
Nice
great,
to meet
but it's always nice to get a real
Oh,
hug and stuff.
that was Jeannie. I didn't know if I introduced her name. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they said that. It's all right.
Again, I forgot, buddy. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. All right. Take it easy. Bye, guys.